I think the issues here indicate that over the last 18 months, the education system has fallen apart, and consequently, just recently, the Prime Minister allowed a lot of the staff within the education not to sign in and sign out, saying that they can feel pleased to come to the job at any time that they wish and leave. But of course, that was found out to be outside, and wasn't good of him, because the law says that everybody must sign in who is actually a member of government. I think the other issue that keeps popping up, of course, is the budget, huge budget that we've taken upon us, and to me this is a very dangerous aspect. All of a sudden we've got wages, and then we've given ourselves a new increased our wages. We've got to look at the taxes. Can we afford this? Who is bearing this? Mostly the private sector, the indirect GST on people. But to raise the budget to 551 puts a big question mark. How sensible are we? 50% of the budget belongs to Australia and New Zealand and other members like the World Bank, the Asian Bank and so forth. So we have to play within our limits. We cannot just go out and award ourselves without looking at the performance that we have had over the last 18 months. And I think this shows and indicates there is a split within Cabinet. Some members want to provide themselves with a higher salary, and the PM keeps saying that he doesn't want government members to have a higher wage. Again, the contradiction seems to be getting larger and larger, and there's a huge split within the Cabinet. So consequently, how does this affect Tonga? It affects us well, because we have to manage this in a way that we can survive in the elections ahead. We've had that very big problem with the number 16 constituency in Vaea, where we had elections within Parliament, and they won, but there was a corruption case there, and of course that happened when he left, when they had a court case, and it was found that he had used more than anticipated for his campaign. The second member of Parliament now was also penalised. He shouldn't have been a member of Parliament because he had outstanding owings, and he shouldn't have campaigned. But he managed to get in, and of course just recently the courts have allowed him to come back in, despite the fact that he has outstandings to pay for the fines that he should have paid off before he went to the elections. So these are areas that clearly indicates a shift away from transparency, accountancy, and how we value our name in terms of where we're going, and how we see ourselves in terms of the future of democracy in Tonga. And that's why the nobility and members of the independents have clearly indicated a vote of no confidence will be put on this government.
That's good. Is there any new benefits of this trip? You know, that you're part of the state visit of the Prime Minister. Did you gain anything extra, or just been talk about the old initiative that the New Zealand government has provided Tonga with?
Thank you. That's a very, very good question. The state visit was basically, we went through it, but what did we want? When you come and sit across from the Prime Minister of New Zealand, what does Tonga want? And that wasn't strongly put across. Why? I don't think we really knew what we wanted. Two, is New Zealand happy with what's going on in Tonga? Did we ask them that? Would they retain our current assistance or not? Or are they looking at curtailing it in the near future, and why? These areas, again, we weren't transparent on, and it is very, very important that this is our gateway to the international world. We come through New Zealand, and New Zealand is a very upfront country. John Keys has visited us, but they also require Tonga to be able to work well. Have we worked well in the last 18 months? That's a big question. And of course, again, this is up to the Parliament, to the government to say. For me personally, I don't think they've done well. Why? Not because I'm sitting in cabinet, I'm sitting opposite. I don't believe that they actually sat down to think about where they will be going. And this is why I believe that the vote of no confidence and the new government needs to come in quickly to allow us to survive in the near future. And Akilisi's been a Prime Minister for only 18 months, but I feel that his cabinet is not fully supporting him. So if they're not fully supporting him, then they should step down. And I think that's where I recognise that there is an enormous split within the government of Tonga.
You talk about this morning on the Tongan radio program about vote of no confidence. How sure are you? And do you have the numbers?
I think the vote of no confidence is an opportunity for the opposition members to tell the public where the performance has been or not. That's first thing. Secondly, we have to be very careful that governments do not just come and give out handouts. When you start giving out handouts to the public to make them feel comfortable with this government, then you have to be, are you sure you're doing the right thing? You should be able to encourage people to work. And I think working it hasn't come off at this stage. The increase of the contingency funding because they need it. I think that's wrong. I think we should be looking at targeting what are the difficult areas that we should be looking at. Where should Hawaii be after the cyclone? They've decreased in their numbers. Where should we be looking? How can we go about these areas that you have to bring into investment, and you must plan it well. You just can't hope that you build houses and that people move in. Because once you build houses, you've got to get them to work and to feed, and then the children go to school. And if you don't have an employment, then what's the point of staying on in there? You can build all the houses in the world there, but if they move away from it, they didn't do their homework well. So these are issues that we must be able to understand when you come in as Prime Minister or as a leading member of the government, to understand what a small states are. Small states island is a politic and beyond what's in the textbook. So you've got to understand it. If you don't understand it well, then unfortunately that government of the day will actually be bankrupt, or even worse, they'll fall apart. And I think this is what's come to the government.
He seems to keep blaming the previous government, which you were a member of in the cabinet. What do you think about it?
Well, firstly, Akilisi was a member of that government. He was Minister of Health in that government before he decided to leave. Now, when you start looking back and saying this is what they did, and you're in the driver's seat, that's no good. Once you sit on the driver's seat, you drive it, because people expect to get to point B from where you are. If you keep saying that they drove and you're motionless and you're standing up parked up, then of course that's a big problem. And I think this is where we are. I don't think we've moved far at all. And this is a big problem because, as I say, if your team's not playing together, then the captain doesn't know what's going on. If others are deciding to do something else, and that's what happened with the govt 16 case, then it shows there is an enormous split within themselves. So I think in the interest of Tonga, the vote of no confidence will go ahead, and not only that, replace the current government, allowing us to move forward in economic and political and of course issues that at this stage is finding it difficult to manage.
If the vote of no confidence becomes successful, do you have a leadership in line, or do you see yourself as leading the new government? Of what's your view on that?
I think I'm raising my hands at this stage. I'm speaking along those lines. I believe that I have got those qualities to take that role on. And at this stage, I think even the Prime Minister believes that. He's decided to bring me along. And to bring me along because he feels that I'm capable of representing the government and the opposition at the same time. That's very unusual, but at the same time, it gives me the understanding that the Prime Minister wishes that I'll be alongside him. So there is that very strong, strong feeling for me that I have that support within the ranks, and I have the support to take the responsibilities in terms of the helm and running it. And of course, this is why I accepted to come with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister wrote to the Speaker requesting my presence on his state visit. Now, why would a Prime Minister call upon a leader of the opposition? A person who has constantly spoken against the policies. I do not speak against the man himself. I speak against the policies. I speak against the performance. I speak against the direction. Those are the areas that one must maintain in terms of Parliament. And I feel that I did that over the last 18 months. And I feel that we need a replacement. And the Prime Minister has strongly indicated he supports me in my presence, that as leader of opposition. He has introduced me to the Prime Minister of Tonga, the leader of the opposition here. And of course, elsewhere where we've gone, I've spoken on behalf of the Prime Minister and the Government of Tonga. That in itself is a strong indicator that I am and he will support me in the consequences of a vote of no confidence.
There will be a number of Tongans around, not only here, but in Tonga, Australia and US, who would be thinking that you're trying to undermine the current government. In a nutshell, can you explain to them the reason why there's a need for vote on no confidence, and give them the confidence that the next government will actually take Tonga from where it is now to the next level?
The ideas of the vote of no confidence is that if you do not do things quickly in your tenure of 4 years, then the likelihood of the next 4 years after you will also be within that afterwash. So the thing is to get it right. Get you right your first 2 years, and then your second 2 years comes out well. If you don't, then it's going to have a domino effect on the following elections. So consequently, what you've got to do is when you come in and have your 4-year tenure, you've got to move in, say this is what we're going to happen the first, second, third, fourth year, election year. You can't drag on and say this is what has happened. I'm not undermining the current government. I think the current government is undermining itself by having a huge split within its ranks. But they won't admit it because their constituency may see this as a fault to the MP. But you have to be honest. If you can't play the game up to the standard that it expects it, then please, let the leadership go. No longer do we have the appointments that we had over the last 100 years. We have to look for good leaders. We have to look for very young leaders who can come forward, take it up and move forward in new areas. And I believe that these are the challenges that Tonga will have, and I don't think that currently it's happening well.
Do you think the new government priority will be focused on economic development or keeping the status quo?
You've got to look at where, what and how as to what sort of economic development you're looking for. If you're going to go for fisheries, you have to look at the long term of fisheries. Now, totally different is your agriculture. Agriculture is an industry that is built on your quarantine. It's built on a huge supply that has a very high expectancy throughout the world, especially if it comes into your market here. And we've seen that in terms of the RSC workers coming and working in your country. Agriculture, fisheries, and of course, just recently, New Zealand has provided pine trees over in Ewa. But those two are very, very, especially now, China is after our fisheries area. Agriculture we find at this stage difficult because we have to come to a very highly expected quarantine. To increase our export, we have to increase those two. And to increase those two is that through the training of the villagers, not to leave to go overseas, but to work their land and have faith that they can have money in their hands. And this is the original purpose by the Tonga Development Bank. But we've moved away from that into a commercial area. Now, what else can we do? We have to take Hawaii away. Hawaii was devastated in 2013-14. You have to look at Hawaii differently. Why? Because it's a very good tourist site. All the islands, you can look at it in terms of specialising tourists going and living on those areas. Vavau, again, they need an airline. We have to look at that aeroplane for Vavau. Is the current standing, I think we have to work in line with New Zealand in a lot. Talk with New Zealand. And at the same time, we have to say, stop going to messing around with Irian Jaya, West Papua. That's got nothing to do with us. Leave that alone. There needs to be a change in attitude, be more awareness of what's required and less of what are the political issues, because the small islands has to work. Our dollars have decreased. Now it's costing us nearly twice the amount equivalent to $1 New Zealand dollar. So it's difficult for us to buy from overseas and to travel overseas. But that's basically, you've got a timeline of 2 years, and at the same time, you've got to bring that confidence back in for the government to operate well at this stage.